Hey guys, welcome to Wrench to Drive DIY Crawler Edition Part 1, all about axles. Now this is going to be mostly about axles, guys. I just want to give a quick intro for those of you who may be very interested in building your own crawler but not have a whole lot of experience. There's a lot of ins and outs. Crawlers are actually a little more complicated than most people think, myself included when I first got into it. It's definitely a case where they're kind of slow, they don't look all that complicated, doesn't seem like there's that much going on, really easy way to get into the hobby. That's mostly true. Crawlers are actually much higher performance than you think they are. They tend to be just like other RC cars in that they're basically the extreme of performance if you translated it to full-size real life. Like a full-on crawler truck is about as high performance a 4x4 as you could possibly find, guys. And it shouldn't come as a surprise that when you go for maximum performance, it is hard on parts, even if you get a good crawler, guys. The thing that people underestimate about crawlers, guys, is the 4x4 aspect. So this SCX-10-3, thing you want to keep in mind is that this is a full-time four-wheel drive crawler, guys. So both these wheels always want to turn at the same speed, guys. If you turn the front end of this truck and you start turning, just being on a very high traction surface like carpet or something is putting load on that axle crossways, the drive shafts within the axle, guys, and it's trying to break those all the time. And the more traction you have, the more load that's being put in there, guys. That is something that people tend not to consider, and it is important. And with some of the cheap Chinese parts, guys, something as simple as turning on carpet can actually break parts if they're flawed to begin with, right? Now, as soon as you get out there crawling and whatnot, like you bump this bumper up against something solid and gun the throttle, if your slipper clutch in your transmission is set really tight, it's going to try and turn those tires. It is going to twist everything in that drivetrain trying to turn those tires. And if there's a weak part in there somewhere, that weak part is probably going to fail, guys. It's amazing how much power you can put through this thing. Now, if you run a relatively low performance motor on a 7.4 volt nickel metal hydride battery, that's a big difference than running a 3S lithium polymer battery with a very powerful brushless motor. That 3S setup with a brushless motor is putting a massive amount more load, guys. So if you're a rookie, if you're new to this, when you start driving that truck, it actually pays huge dividends to run a brushed setup with basically like a 540 gutless motor or a 550, nothing special motor, guys, because it is simply not making as much power and it will not break parts as easily, guys. Keep that in mind. These are much higher performance than you think, guys, much higher performance, and that is something that a lot of people don't take into account. And especially with those cheap Chinese axles, if you want those to last, guys, maybe consider, when you start driving it, run a little less power, run a nickel metal hydride battery, not a lithium polymer. It's going to crawl over the same stuff it would crawl over. The only thing you're getting is a little more wheel speed, and if you run a 3S, a lot more wheel speed, but you're not really getting a lot more crawling performance, guys. So that's something to consider. And people tend not to think about that type of thing, but like I said, it's something well worth considering. So I'm going to go through some entry-level stuff here really quick, just to give you an idea. If you have not built a crawler, a good idea where to start, where you can get into the hobby quite inexpensively. It's not going to last forever, but it lets you work on the car, have some fun, drive it, get a feel for it, without spending a bucket load of money. And if you end up not being that into it, you haven't lost much, guys. So the first one I'm going to show you, it's an Injora product. Injora is a cheap Chinese brand that's actually pretty solid, guys. They've got lots of good stuff. I'm going to show you some of their axles. There's two chassis that you can buy, guys. This is a relatively new one here, this Rock Bouncer chassis. The thing I like about it, guys, it's very affordable. You can get into it for like 140 bucks with a coupon, and you're ready to go, guys. You got to put electronics in it, but that's really easy, and that doesn't take much skill, very little knowledge. Relatively straightforward. and buy yourself some wheels and tires. I would always go for the doesn't come with the wheels and tires instead of the one that does, guys, because these are plastic wheels. Tires are pretty good. Plastic wheels though, you want to get metal wheels, guys, trust me, that's totally worth the money. So you're going to want to shop around and get yourself some metal wheels. So for 140 bucks plus another, let's say 55 for wheels and tires, it's doable. This is Canadian dollars. 200 bucks, you got a rolling chassis. Not bad, guys. Motors are cheap for crawlers, electronics are relatively cheap for crawlers. You're going to be into this for budget 350, 400 bucks, including battery and charger, you know, everything. You're ready to go, guys. That sounds like a lot, considering it's cheap Chinese, but you're going to spend that level of money no matter what you do, guys. And as soon as you start getting into the higher end crawlers, you're going to be spending more. And I'm going to show you a couple real quick here, guys. The other option you can go with is an Endura crawler chassis, guys. So this is very similar to the standard Axial SCX-10-2. It's something you're going to hear me talk about. Very, very common, guys. This is a very affordable entry point. 145 bucks Canadian for a chassis with no wheels, guys. And again, go with the metal wheels, the one that comes with wheels and tires. It's okay, guys. The tires aren't bad, the wheels aren't horrible, but those wheels, plastic wheels, don't last forever, guys. Simple as that. I would just, that's something I would spend the money right up front, is getting a set of metal wheels that you like. So this is a standard SCX-10-2 layout, guys. Very, very common. You're going to need to buy a body. You're going to need to buy electronics to get this thing up and running, guys. Not a bad place to start. Very affordable. It's not going to last forever, but it's not terrible, guys. The big thing about these Chinese rigs, guys, is they won't last forever. But if you're the type of person that is not going to beat the crap out of your RC car, they're pretty durable, guys. If you are going to drive it hard, either abuse it, bouncing it off stuff, really treating it poorly, that type of thing, I would go for a higher end crawler. If you're the type of person that you're not going to be super mean to it, definitely these are worth considering, guys. And the only thing I got to warn you about is if you've never driven one of these before, it's a distinct possibility that you're being mean to it and you don't even really realize it, because like something like bumping up against an immovable object and giving it full throttle, that's a little bit hard on it, guys. You can do some damage doing that if you're not careful. So just keep in mind, if you're a noob, these things don't last forever. You can very easily do damage without necessarily intending to, guys. Now, the name brands, another way to get in is with a builder's kit, guys. And here you can see the Element RC Enduro chassis, guys. And I think I've got that one open. Yes, I do. So this is very similar to an SCX-10-2. The transmission is a little bit different. The battery placement's a little bit different. There are subtle differences, but it's very similar layout-wise. So anything you can do with an SCX-10-2, you can do with this. The shocks, by all accounts, are very nice quality. I don't actually have one of these, guys, so I'm just telling you what I've heard. Overall, very durable. Crawls really nice. Doesn't have portal axles. That's something we'll get into. Really solid, guys. Not super cheap, but very solid. So if you want something durable, something where you're starting from a good entry point, so these builders kits are a great way to go, guys. Axial has one, Red Cat has one, Element has one, Traxxas has one. So really good place to start, guys. Another good place to start is with a ready-to-run crawler, guys. This is the Axial SCX-10-3 Cadillac crawler. Goes for about 700 bucks. It's awesome, guys. Looks really good. Look at all those details. Again, what we're talking about today is mostly about DIY. If you want to build a crawler yourself, customize it, do lots of cool stuff to it. So you want to put in aftermarket axles, metal axles that look really spiffy. So you probably don't want to go with the pre-made one. But again, if you're looking for durability, guys, the pre-made crawlers are awesome. The TRX4 Sport kit is a great way to start as well, guys. It's a super awesome truck. The TRX4 is excellent, guys. Probably the Cadillac in the range. Really good way to go if you want all that quality, right? So that's the place to start if you want to be up and running, guys. There's lots of Banggood specials. I did a feature on Banggood crawlers. But let's say you want to do a custom job, you guys. You want to do your own crawler. the heart of it, guys, this is that cheap Enjoyer kit. The heart of it, though, guys, is the axles. Anytime you're building a custom crawler, the axles are the heart of it. And the axles are hard to get cheap. It's hard to get a good deal, guys. You always got to spend real money. That's why, depending on what you want, it may actually make sense to buy a ready-to-run crawler. So if you want to treat it hard, like beat the crap out of it, you're building a truck to drive, starting with a Traxxas or an Axial or a Red Cat or an Element, you know, whichever one you think is the best for your needs, guys, might be the better way to go, because those axles are really good quality, guys. They are very solid. Any of those name brand rigs, the axles are very, very good, guys. So the Element, they're plastic housings, guys. Plastic is not necessarily worse than metal. In fact, most of the time in RC cars, plastic is actually better because it flexes, it doesn't just break. Now, if everything metal was made of awesome metal, guys, well, of course, you know, metal tends to be better for for pretty much any application, but it weighs more, which in crawlers can be a good thing. And it's a bit of a debate. If you're looking at all-out performance, I would actually say that for the most part, plastic axles are better. So the stock crawlers, the high-end crawlers, you're getting the best quality axles you're going to find, basically. So if you want performance, you're probably better off starting with a high-end crawler, guys. Now, if you want looks, which a lot of people do, and you're still getting pretty good performance, but if looks is very important to you, then you want to start looking at some of these cheap Chinese metal axles. And there are very, very expensive North American made axles, or what Taiwanese made, whatever. Quality axles, guys. I'm not talking about those just because they are out of most people's price range. It's a small minority of crawler people that are buying those crazy expensive axles. I mean, you can spend the price of a crawler on a set of expensive axles, guys. Trial is the brand that springs to mind. There's a couple others. I'm not that into that stuff, guys. Too expensive for my liking. Another really important consideration, guys, is the location of the pumpkin, guys. And the most important consideration, if you're starting with a TRX4, notice how the pumpkin on the front axle is offset to one side, guys, and that's because the TRX4 transmission has the front output off to the left. Okay, but that's important because if you want to put in a set of cheap Chinese metal axles and the pumpkin is in the center, the input from the center drive shaft is in the center, guys, it doesn't work very well. There's not enough room. It doesn't clear this part of the transmission mount here, guys. I grinded mine a little bit, improved it somewhat. Still wasn't perfect, so I actually did a 3D printed transmission mount to move the transmission up some. Ironically, that helps the situation, and basically gave it more room so that it can exit kind of farther back and have more pivoting room, guys, and that fixed my problem. Now, I was using the Red Cat axles, so the pumpkin on the Red Cat is offset to the side, guys, just not quite far enough for the Traxxas, okay? So keep that in mind. That is something you absolutely have to pay attention to. Now, the Axial looks to be a better situation, guys. Notice that the drive shaft is offset. It's on the left side. The pumpkin's offset, but it looks like there's room to run that drive shaft back to the center. Looks like there's more clearance, guys. Now, I can't swear to that, but it looks like there is, okay? So that's something to consider with these new crawlers, guys, is make sure that if you have some funky application in mind, that you think it through and do some measurements. You know, maybe hit the hobby store with a slide rule and hit the hobby store with a set of calipers and make sure that what you have in mind will actually work, guys. That was a surprise to me. So hopefully you're learning from my experience. Don't let it be a surprise for you. So that offset, that's important, guys. And the standard setup, like this Enduro, is not subject to that quite so much, guys, because both sides are off to the side, but there's lots of room. There's lots of clearance, guys. See how the pumpkins are in the middle and everything works fine? So this Enduro setup, you can put in a set of cheap Chinese axles, no problem if that floats your boat, or a relatively small problem. Like, shouldn't have much trouble. So keep that in mind, guys. Keep that in mind. Lots of options out there, and you know, lots of details to be aware of. For the most part, one thing I'd like to make a point of is that the Traxxas is pretty much the Cadillac crawler. Out of the box, it's got the 2-speed transmission, the locking and unlocking diffs in the axles. The full meal deal Traxxas is an awesome crawler, guys. I personally wouldn't waste a bunch of effort putting Chinese axles into a Traxxas. It seems kind of counterintuitive, guys. You got all these fancy features. Why do that? If you're gonna go that route, I'd kind of go with the TRX4 Sport, because it's, you know, then you're not wasting those features, you know, to get to a point that's probably in pretty much every way that matters a downgrade. So, you know, to me, if you want to do a custom crawler, the Traxxas is probably not the ideal starting point. It's kind of counterintuitive. It's a much better vehicle out of the box, and it kind of should stay that way. Same probably goes for the Axial SCX-10-3. This thing is awesome out of the box, guys. I'm not too sure why you'd want to put cheap Chinese parts into one of these. And you know, maybe you get a deal, and the one you get, the axles are wrecked, so you want to do some farting around. Keep in mind, if you find a junked crawler and you wanna buy it, don't pay too much, guys. If the axles are toast, that's a legit problem, guys. They're worth real money. You know, to me, a crawler with destroyed axles is worth a tiny fraction of what it should be worth, guys. I'm going to show you two brands that I consider worth buying personally. Injora is the first one here. So I have a set of these cheap metal axles here, guys, and I'm just going to go through this real quick to show you a little bit of what you need to know. So these cheap metal axles here are pretty solid, and I'll go over them in detail in a second. You get a set of those for about $80. So this 38 bucks, that's for a rear axle, guys. The pair is going to run you about 80 bucks Canadian, so about 60, 65 American. Really cheap, guys. That's a good deal. They're not terrible, guys. Biggest thing to watch out for in cheap axles is this style of drive shaft right here at the bottom that I'm circling. If you see this style of drive shaft, that's a weakness, guys. They're not super durable. If you have to replace them constantly, it does add up. The quality is kind of hit and miss. Sometimes they're pretty good, sometimes they're not. That's the parts you're going to break. If you buy this set of axles, make sure you order yourself a set of spare front drive shafts, especially if you're someplace where the lead time is bad. Like if it's going to take you a month and a half to get the drive shafts, order yourself a spare set. They will break eventually. Now, mostly what you do is want to do trail driving, like relatively mundane, you know, take your truck for a walk type of driving. You know, you build a really spiffy, shiny truck, you don't want to beat the crap out of it. They're probably going to hold up pretty well, guys. I would still buy a spare set of drive shafts if it's me, okay? Then you got this more upscale set of axles that I'll show you. I believe they come with the splined gears, guys. These are more durable, generally tougher, also a little more expensive. These are the innards for the standard axles, guys. These plastic guys. The drive shafts, I believe, also work in the metal ones. The metal gears, I don't see here actually. They're straight cut gears, guys, which hopefully we'll spot a link to some of those. They're very common. Injora is pretty good for parts being available, guys, so you'll be able to find replacement parts if something goes wrong. Keep in mind with any axles, the bearings are for the most part widely available, guys. All you need to do is measure the bearing. Typically it's going to be a relatively standard size. They're super common. I have yet to see an RC car bearing that was not common. You can easily order them off Amazon or eBay or whatever. They're widely available, guys. Now another style of axle that you're going to want to pay attention to is wraith axles. You can tell them typically by the offset pumpkins, and they physically look a lot wider, which they are, guys. So always pay attention. If you see wraith, that is not the axle you want for a spiffy, realistic crawler truck, guys. They're much wider. They're a different style of axle. Keep that in mind. That's probably the biggest thing to pay attention to. That and portal axles. If you want portals, Injora I don't think has any right now, guys. Now the other brand that I'm going to show you a lot about is Fimonda. Been around for a while, pretty reliable brand, and the axles look really nice, guys. They've got a bunch of portal axles. They've also got Capra portal axles, Capra / Wraith, I guess. So you got to pay attention again to the ads, guys. They also have the cheap big pumpkin standard axles, guys. Very similar price. I'm not sure which are better, the Enjoras or the Faimondas. I'd say it's basically a roll of the dice. You know, pick whichever one you think seems better. Faimonda also, take note, lots of parts available, guys. So that's a really good thing. You want to pay attention to that. Faimonda also has these TRX4 axle housings. So you get a nice metal axle housing. You put your TRX4 axle parts into it. These are not cheap, guys. These are quite pricey considering there's no gears in them. You're going to have to put your own gears in, guys. So these are something you buy only pretty much if you have a TRX4 already. Okay? Keep that in mind. And again, like I said, lots of parts available through Faimonda, guys. So super important. Pay attention to that. One thing you got to be careful of with the Chinese stuff, guys, make sure you have some idea where you can get the parts, because the one downside to cheap Chinese axles, they tend not to last forever, guys. So let's have a look at the specific axles. So these are those big pumpkin cheap ones that I talked about. I got a set of these almost 2 years ago now for about 80 bucks off Amazon. They were on sale. No complaints, guys. Mine are super nice quality. They look really good. All I had to do was Loctite a few screws, guys. You want to make sure you check the screws and make sure that any that are loose you Loctite, or any that can become loose you Loctite. Otherwise, definitely the potential is there for them to fall apart. The only problem I've had is one of those drive shafts that I mentioned broke. And I have a video on what to check to see if you got a good quality set right out of the box. You can do a little bit of massaging to make sure they work properly. The other tip, guys, is make sure that you check your steering and you don't set the servo to use too much steering range. You can actually kind of pull these too far over to one direction, and you're kind of past the point where the axles can turn properly, guys. The drive shafts can turn properly, and then that puts a tremendous strain on them. They break much easier. So when in doubt, use a little less turning radius, guys, and you are less likely to have problems. Now these axles, these are real common, guys. You'll see these all over the place. I would buy the cheapest ones you can find because you know the quality's really good, the machining's nice. One downside, the aluminum's pretty soft, guys. So if you're running these, if you're rock crawling and you're bouncing these pumpkins off rocks, they get chewed up really quickly, guys. They don't stay super nice and shiny very long if you actually use these the way the crawler was kind of meant to be used, guys. Another thing to pay attention to is these are designed to run an axle mounted servo for steering, guys. So if you need to run a panhard bar, you're going to need to do a little bit of DIY to come up with a mount point for the panhard bar. If that sounds complicated and difficult, you might want to stay away from these guys. Otherwise, if your truck is capable of running 4-link front suspension, guys, then you can run 4-link front suspension. So 4-link means that there's 2 links that come off of this mount right here, guys, instead of 1. If there's 1 link and a panhard bar to stabilize it side to side, then these axles will work fine for you. If you're looking to run a panhard bar, you're going to need to do some DIY. If you can run a 4-link setup, you're laughing, guys. So keep that in mind. Actually, with this little bad boy, you can see that is a 4-link setup. So 2 links up top, 2 links on the bottom, guys. That's a 4-link setup right there. Okay? If you had a panhard bar, one of the top links would be there, and there would be a bar going horizontally to stabilize the axle, guys. And I'll try and show you a picture of that at some point here. Oh, this runs a 4-link setup. Okay, so if you start with this chassis, guys, you're laughing because it actually runs a 4-link setup. The SCX-10-2 from Axial, I believe, runs 3-link and a panhard bar. I don't think I'm wrong on that, but something to maybe pay attention to. Anyways, so there's the point that there's a lot of details, guys. The devil's in the details with these things. So if you're not super savvy, there's a lot of things to pay attention to. The second set of Enjora axles, very affordable. You're looking at 115 Canadian, free shipping. That's a good deal, guys. These look really nice. They have different styles of them. The pumpkin is smaller, so less banging off rocks and whatnot. Overall, the quality looks really good. It's got a panhard bar mount right there, guys. That's a panhard bar mount. You can also do an axle mounted servo, so very versatile. These are nice looking axles, and you can see these use the beveled gears, guys. the bevel cut gears. See that little spirally pattern there? They're not straight, right? Bevel cut gears. Straight cut gears just have a nice straight line there, guys. So beveled gears are typically a sign of good quality, guys. So these are solid axles. I think they look really good. Personally, these are a set that I would strongly consider. They look fantastic. Really nice quality. Like I said, Endura is a decent brand in my humble opinion, guys. They're pretty reliable. So definitely worth considering, guys. And they look good. And see right there, the universal style shaft, guys, much more durable typically. That is a real selling feature, guys. That's a tremendous reason to go with these as opposed to those other axles I showed you. Definitely worth considering. Then we have this set of Wraith axles. These are definitely more expensive, going on 150 bucks. A little on the pricey side, guys, because typically for that money I would be looking at a set of portal axles instead of these straight axles, guys. Now, if you want to run a performance crawler, okay, these can actually be used on like a standard truck style crawler. The tires are just going to be outside the wheel wells, right? It's going to have that real widened look, almost a monster truck look. And it's one of those things where depending on how much you want to modify the body, you know, most people don't want to run these, but you can actually do some pretty neat stuff with them if you're so inclined, guys. So keep that in mind. And the only thing you have to be careful of is make sure that your drive shaft or your center drive shafts can get to the offset location of the pumpkin, guys, right? Make sure that that's doable. Typically it is, but it's something to pay attention to. Don't ignore that, guys. Again, these look really solid. They're set up for the axle mounted servo as the Wraith ones typically are. And you know, they look really good, guys. These are an axle that I would definitely consider. The only downside again is that style of CV, of the drive shafts on the outside there, guys. These are again notorious for not being super durable, so it's something to keep in mind. For all-out performance, not the perfect option, guys. I would prefer to go for ones with a universal style joint, but other than that, these look pretty good, guys. And well, that and the price isn't super cheap, guys. 150 bucks is a lot of money. That's not a cheap set of axles by any stretch of the imagination. So something to keep in mind. But overall, the quality of these looks really good, and there's no reason to think they're any lower quality than any other Endura product, guys. They tend to be really good. Now, again, these Famonda axles, there's lots to choose from and lots of spare part options, right, guys? That's really sweet. And notice these are their Wraith drive shafts, guys, and see how they got that universal style joint? Let's open this up. When you see these installed in a set of axles, these are typically more durable, guys. Now the weakness in these is there's a big pin through here, a little pin through there. The little pin is the weakness, guys. But I have to think that with some DIY knowledge, installing a fresh pin if you break one should be doable, guys. I haven't done a whole lot of looking into that because I don't own anything that uses these, but oh boy, it sure seems like it should be doable. Whereas those other style of drive shafts, when those things break, they're broken, guys. Period. Full stop. So something to think about anyways, guys. Typically these are more durable, so if you see axles with those style of drive shafts like these Famondas are, guys, those are the way to go. And keep in mind that portal axles are a little bit different. I want to look. I saw a set of spare parts for portal axles here. Now I don't see it. Okay, keep in mind these portal axle parts are totally different, guys. And being able to find replacement parts is important. So without knowing exactly what's in a particular set of axles, guys, it's an adventure trying to figure out if you can get spare parts or not without actually owning them. These, I don't know how durable these are. They should be okay, would be my guess, but the upside, and it's a big upside, you know you can get them, right? You know those parts are available, guys. And gears and drive shafts, the whole set, $17. It's not bad, guys. That's really cheap compared to the parts for North American axles. Personally, I would be more than inclined to pick up a set of these. You can get bearings, you can get all the parts, guys. Let's see what standard spiral cut ring and pinion. So looks totally legit, guys. So these Famonda axles, as best as I can tell, guys, they are the ones that I would strongly consider buying, guys. There's lots of axles out there, guys. I strongly encourage you not to overpay. Overpaying is just, oh, it's playing with fire, my friends. It's playing with fire. You want to look for a decent deal, and especially when you start out at a store like Injora or Famonda. There's other brands as well, guys, but these are two that I know have been around for a while, and they're making an effort to build a solid brand, guys. It's a good place to start. So this particular set of axles is a set that appealed to me if you're looking for straight axles, guys. I like this, I don't know what you call it, like an octagon cut pumpkin. I think these look really cool, guys. They've got the U-joint style drive shafts. They look really slick, guys. They've got the panhard bar mount on the front axle, as well as the servo mount option. They look really good, guys. They're very, very reasonably priced. 108 bucks to your door, Canadian. So under $100 American. That's a good deal, guys. These look really solid. Again, they've got the spiral cut ring and pinion. You know, the good drive shafts. These look really good, guys. These are standard dimensions for axles, guys. Always pay attention to this. For a standard crawler, the width from the inside of the hex to the inside of the hex is about 180 millimeters, and outside to outside is about 212, 215. So always pay attention to that, guys. If you can't find dimensions, I would not buy the product unless you're pretty sure what it is. So something to take note of. The nice thing, like, these guys give you dimensions, right? All the information is here. You can easily figure out what you're dealing with. They show you the innards. This is all good stuff, guys. This is exactly what you want. You know, this is the kind of information that a company that is trying to be legit, trying to sell good quality products is going to give you. And look at that finish there, guys. Look at that. These look really good. So again, if you want straight axles, not portal, these look pretty solid to me, guys. And again, if you're looking to build a crawler with an emphasis on appearance, pretty nice looking. They got three finishes: the silver, kind of titanium, and black. All of them look really nice. Well worth considering, guys, in my opinion. They also have these portal axles, similar style. These look really good. They've got three different finishes as well, and again, the gears are available, which is really nice. They come with a nice metal servo horn. That's a dollar value item right there. These aren't super cheap, guys. These are in the $135 price range, but again, the quality looks really good. So you know, and that is for sure cheaper than you're gonna find any other name brand crawler parts, guys. You can't build a set of name brand axles for that kind of money, guys. And again, panhard bar mount, axle mounted servo option. So these should work really nicely, guys. And again, you're going to need to do a little DIY. The panhard link might not be the perfect dimension. You know, how you hook up attach the links and the shocks, you might need to do a little bit of farting around, guys. That's, you know, kind of the price you pay if you want to do custom, guys. There's always, you know, there's always a little bit of DIY. Things tend not to fit perfectly. It's just like real cars, you know. Bolt on is always a bit of an adventure, guys. If you get something that says bolt on that actually bolts right on, it's almost a miracle, guys. It's kind of the same with RC stuff. I would say a little bit easier. The one tool that is pretty much indispensable, guys, is a Dremel with some grinding and cutting attachments. If you have that, you're probably good. Look at the quality, guys. That's a pretty nice looking set of axles, in my opinion. There's your portals with the gear reduction. I always like to grease the crap out of everything, guys. Like you can see, they're showing you they're greased. My approach to this type of stuff is when I get it, I take it apart, I grease the crap out of it, and I use Loctite to make sure the screws won't come out. Simple as that, guys. And if you check and you take care of it, what's gonna go wrong? If you don't check and, you know, something fails because it wasn't greased properly, I kind of figure you only have yourself to blame. Most of the stuff that I've bought, the metal Chinese parts and whatnot, I haven't had any problems with stripped screws and whatnot, except with wheels and tires, guys. Which is why I personally prefer to buy wheels and tires that come unassembled and endure the pain of putting all those bajillion screws in. If you put them in, you know they're not wrecked. I've gotten a couple, I'm trying to think, 2 sets from China. One wasn't totally messed up. The other one, there's no way I can get those wheels apart, guys, without surgery. And that just means that if something goes wrong, I'm pretty much out of luck, guys. Now, they were really cheap, but that kind of annoys me. I don't know about you. So it's always a bit of an adventure, but for the most part, this type of stuff tends to be really nice quality, tends to be put together pretty well, so you should be okay. And you know, in these pictures, you know, the quality looks really good. A lot of times, even in the pictures, you know, you'll see signs of dodgy quality, guys. And this set is very similar looking. I think it must just be the color that's different, guys. So very similar. And again, the parts are available, right? So that's a good thing, guys. Now, another set of axles that you can get, usually, right now they're not available, unfortunately, is this Red Cat portal axle kit. These are the axles that are on the Red Cat Gen 8 out of the box, guys, and this is an upgrade that they made for the Gen 7. You can also use these axles on other crawlers with a little bit of DIYing, guys. In my opinion, these are good axles, guys. I really like them. Quality's good. I've read some stuff that they're not super durable. You can get a set of heavy-duty housings for a relatively small amount of money. You know, keep that in mind. I think they're really good. They work really well. You know, I've had no troubles with my Gen 8 at all, so I don't have anything bad to say. Some other people, you know, kind of do. Now, the other ones that are available from Red Cat are they're a set of straight axles that are Wraith width. They're the XR247 axles that come on the Wendigo. I have a set of those. They're really good, guys. Really nice axles. I have nothing bad to say whatsoever. So Red Cat's a good source for axles. Again, the only downside right now, not easy to get your hands on. So keep that in mind. There are lots and lots of cheap Chinese axles, guys, and too many to cover in one piece, guys. So I hope that gave you some information that is useful. I always figure if you're starting with a name brand, even if it's a Chinese brand, you know, you're starting in a good place because they don't want bad word of mouth. So like Femonda and Injora, they've been around for a while. You know, they're not trying to sell you junk, guys. Now, you know, take note. Obviously, I'm qualifying, I'm hedging a lot of the information on these Chinese products, guys, because they are not as durable as your Axial and your Traxxas. But they're also a lot cheaper, guys. And that's the main thing I want to encourage you to keep in mind, is that for the money, they're pretty good, guys. And, you know, keep in mind that it always comes back to, are you building a crawler for looks, or are you building a crawler for performance? And to me, if you're building a crawler for performance, I would start with a high performance crawler to begin with, an Axial, a Traxxas, whatever, guys. Lots of stuff out there, right? If you're building a crawler for looks, it might not be the most cost-effective way to start with one of those complete crawlers, guys. You might just want to start with a chassis and start putting things together, like chassis rails, cross braces, like literally build it from pieces, guys. You got to do some pricing. It's you know, it gets interesting in a hurry, guys. And you know, like something like this Enduro, really good chassis, guys. If you're not going to use these axles, if you're going to put on some shiny metal Chinese axles because you're building it for looks, well, you're spending quite a bit of money on a chassis where the main thing that costs money is the axles, guys. It's a tough call. That's where the math starts to get interesting, guys. Now, the transmission in this Enduro is pretty good, and I'm going to talk about transmissions in another piece, guys. But largely the transmission is dependent on the type of chassis that you're running, guys. You know, you can do some modifying. I'm running a TRX4 chassis with a TRX4 2-speed transmission running Red Cat axles, and it works pretty well, guys. I did that because I didn't have a TRX4, I had a Red Cat, and I wanted to run a two-speed setup. So I put together the TRX4 Frankenstein truck with the Red Cat axles, ran the 2-speed transmission, and my Red Cat is running those cheap Chinese metal axles, these guys. And I actually kind of like them both. The Traxxas is kind of high-end performance, while the Traxxas chassis and transmission with the Red Cat axles. The Red Cat is kind of a trail truck. Drives a lot like a real Suburban or a Scout. Drives like a big heavy SUV, guys. It's got kind of a realistic feel to it. I actually like it a lot. So there's lots of things you can do, guys. There's just you know, kind of an inevitable plethora of little glitches that can catch you guys. So remember, look for those panhard bar mounts, guys. That's important, right? If there's no panhard bar mount, you're going to have to do something about that. If you're not super DIY oriented, it's going to be an adventure, guys. Pay attention to those drive shafts. Like I said, the U-joint style are typically more durable. You can buy a good quality set of the U-joint style, and you know, you're good to go. Even if you break like, let's say these aren't very good out of the box, find a set that you know are good. Worst case, buy the Axial ones, and there you go, right? The other style are definitely not great, guys. These bad boys, that is a weakness in my humble opinion, guys. Not bad if you're running a trail truck, but if you want durability, performance, not ideal. There you go. Thanks for tuning in to Wrench to Drive, Great Big Axle Edition, where we've talked about axles and given you some information that should help you find a set of cheap Chinese metal axles that will work for you and not leave you horribly disappointed. Injora and Fomonda are both good sources. Stay tuned down the road for links to deals that I consider to be worth buying, guys. And yeah, we'll see you next time on Wrench to Drive, where we ask the eternal question: do you drive to wrench, or do you wrench to drive?